Hey friends, this is the first in a series of me going through my home coffee gear. I try to be really intentional with what I keep around, and if something's not very useful or I just don't like it very much, I don't want it to take up space in my kitchen. The first piece of coffee gear that I wanted to look at is the Hario V60 in red ceramic and in the number 1 size, which is super tiny. It's really compact in your hand. It feels great actually to hold. I think even better than the number 2 size. I don't know, there's something about it. It feels great. And you can only really make yourself 1 cup of coffee, which is part of why I like this. This also comes with a red decanter, which has this little plastic lid. I'm not usually a big fan of plastic, but I do like that it's red, and having broken so many of the glass version of this carafe, specifically just the tops. I've never really broken, actually that's not true, I've broken a big glass carafe, but I've mostly broken dozens and dozens, I feel like, of the lids. So obviously aesthetics are pretty high on the list for why I like this little guy. There's also a little bit of sentimental value, to be honest. I bought this from a shop that's not around anymore, from a guy named James, who used to run Tribeca in Mount Vernon here in Baltimore. He taught me how to roast. He let me pick up a couple shifts when stuff was slow or I just didn't have a lot of work. And he's just an all-around great guy and a great member of the community in Baltimore. Now, having said all that, there's actually quite a bit of utility to this brewer as well. And having been in quarantine for a number of weeks, I've had the opportunity to make coffee for myself, and pretty much all the coffee that I've made, I've been able to taste. Now, if you're in the coffee business, or especially in the cafe business, that's sort of unheard of, that you'd be able to taste every single cup of coffee that you make. It's just not practical. And what I've noticed for home brewing specifically and pour over is that the smaller the better. And that's because smaller brewers are more efficient. There's less coffee to brew, so it's easier for the water to extract everything out of that. And I've noticed that brewing with this and brewing small doses in general, I've gotten cleaner cups, I've gotten sweeter cups, and just more balanced coffee, especially when it cools. So I'm using 15 grams of coffee typically with this brewer and about 250 grams of water. Now, if you've followed some of my other videos, you might have seen the V60 for 2, where I talk about cramming as much coffee into a V60 brewer so it's filled up to the tip top like you see in their advertising. And what I found in that video is that it's possible, and it's definitely something that you can do with that brewer if you need to make coffee for a couple people, but it's not ideal, and it's not going to taste as good as using a smaller dose. The other advantage to using a small dose to increase efficiency is you're able to grind a little bit finer. Especially if you have a pouring kettle and you can pour very slow, this will help prevent the filter from getting clogged up with fines and keep the flow really nice and consistent, so you'll get as much contact with the coffee as possible. And lastly, I get to be a little bit selfish. When I use this little V60, it's only going to make a tiny cup of coffee that's basically just enough for myself. So I don't really use this in the morning, but I'll use it in the afternoon for a second cup or a nice cup of decaf. Yeah, I've got some really good decaf here. You should drink decaf. It's actually really good. Here's the decaf that I'm drinking right now. Super delicious. Thank you, Sarah. I really do enjoy sharing coffee with people. And honestly, anybody who's in this industry will tell you that the reason they got into it is because of the people. But it's also important to remember to do something for yourself every once in a while. So, that's it. I'm gonna gather all this stuff up and go make some coffee. Just for me, not for anybody else.